Hey, welcome to Facts at 5, everyone. I'm Michael Clark. It is Monday, June the 1st, 2020. I'm here at LTV Media Center with my good friend Morgan Vaughan. And say hello, Morgan.
Hello, Morgan.
Welcome to Facts at 5.
Thank you. You too.
What's going on today?
What isn't going on?
What isn't going on?
The news is that Mercury has flown into the sun, but everybody, we don't need to worry about it. No, what's going on is that we have a major upheaval. First of all, we still, of course, are dealing with the coronavirus, and now we are also dealing with major rioting, protesting, and hopefully mostly peaceful protests for the death of George Floyd last week.
Right.
So starting with COVID-19, the number of positive cases, and this is from the Star, yesterday rose by 111 since over the weekend, from Saturday to Sunday.
Right.
And the number of patients in hospitals and intensive care units have decreased. The total number of fatalities in Suffolk County is at 1,901 right now. So we're continuing to deal with this. There are still people getting sick and going to the hospital, and there is still this virus that we're dealing with.
It's kind of been put on the back burner, hasn't it?
A little bit of the back burner, because on the briefing that Jamie went to on I guess it was Sunday.
Yeah.
Mr. Ballone spent a good portion of the briefing discussing the death of George Floyd, the black Minneapolis resident who died after a white police officer knelt on his neck for 8 minutes, and the widespread protests that have erupted in the wake of the incidents.
Right.
And these are protests that are not only in this country, but as we were talking about earlier before we started shooting, that are all over the world.
Yeah.
And the Suffolk County Police Department has focused on building relationships in every community,
Right.
Mr. Malone said, and officials have been attempting to root out systemic racism, particularly in the justice system. And as a note, Suffolk County Chief of Police Stuart Cameron said that the neck hold used by the Minneapolis police officer was not a maneuver that is authorized by the Suffolk County Police Department.
Yeah, I would guess they wouldn't teach them to kneel on someone's neck.
Yeah, I think that's not a great thing to do. But I think you want to talk about what's going on in terms of the peaceful protests that are going on in the East End right now.
Yeah, I mean, some good things have happened, and there were reservations by a lot of folks because there were two scheduled over in Riverhead yesterday, one at 1 o'clock and one at 3 o'clock, one at Stotsky Park, and the other was right in the village, started at the waterfront and then marching through the village. But both of those were extremely peaceful protests. The 1 o'clock gathering in Stotsky Park drew about 100 people, and many of whom they were up there sharing their own personal stories. And the 3 o'clock event, which was billed as a Black Lives Matter protest, but wasn't an official Black Lives Matter organization run event, that drew about 3 times as many people. And those people went walking through town. And but it was all driven by it. I think the thing that's been, I guess, impressive, maybe that's not the right word about this, is the amount of young people involvement in this whole situation, all around the country, all around the world, who are very passionate about what it is. Now, there's 2 separate factions, right? You have the people that are protesting, and then you have the people that are taking advantage of the fact that people are protesting. And there's a whole lot of discussion that you could have about that, the whens and the whys and the whos. But, to focus on the protesters, it's young people. And they're really angry and they're really tired. And voicing the opinion of that now's the time, that this has to stop. And let's face it, we've been dealing with this since slavery began, and really not a whole lot has changed. We've made incremental change along the way, but not a whole lot has really, really changed, especially when you that's easy for me to sit here as a white person and say that, but when you're talking to people of African American descent, they will tell you that, and they all have stories. And frankly, growing up in milky white neighborhoods like I did, you look at them and and your head spins because some things you just simply can't believe.
Right.
Now it's caught on video, and now it's real, and it's real to everybody. And so hopefully, when the clamor dies down, and people, if they're not reacting, certainly, that it's finally going to be a time of change for some of these things. And so you might say, well, how does this equate to local news? I think having one in Riverhead, set the stage. There's a person by the name of Talia Hayes who has just come out with one that's going to take place at the Hook Mill on Sunday, June the 7th from 2 to 5, and it's called Say Their Names. And she was inspired she had attended one in Brentwood yesterday, and it was extremely well done, extremely peaceful, and it was getting the point across that they really wanted to get across. So now that's, it's happening now further on the East End. So that is supposed to happen. And she does say on social media that that is tentative. They are waiting for the right permits and to do all the right things. So they're going about it in the right way. And again, the part to me that's so inspiring is the fact that it's young people taking the initiative. Because let's face it, they're the ones that are going to get things done now. My generation has tried and failed miserably, I guess. I guess they have, maybe there's some successes along the way, but just overall.
Right.
So now it's.
Well, I think we all thought there was a lot more success than there was.
Yes.
I think that we thought we had a black president, and many people have said, and I agree with this, you sort of think, okay, we're in this post-race society to some extent. I mean,
Right.
there's still, but to have the things that we've been seeing recently happen within the past 4 to 5 years is shocking, I think, to a lot of people.
Right.
And the image of this white police officer on this guy's neck is just something that I think stimulated a lot of people because everybody can identify with that being something that you don't even do in play.
Right. And
And then the other thing that I keep going back to is the image of the white protesters with the rifles and the machine guns at the courthouse in Michigan.
that was okay.
And that was okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mind-boggling, and it can't go on. We've seen it too many times. It's just like, to me, it's like the school shootings. You think, okay, this has got to be the last one because how can people live with this?
Right.
But that's my opinion.
Yeah.
There's like we're always talking about, there are unintended consequences everywhere when you do certain things. But this seems to be pretty clear what's going on.
Yeah.
I also saw that there were some teenagers who were going to be doing something that was on Instagram. So, and I think that's at Herrick Park, but I'm not sure when. And that would be, I think it was Andrea Grover posted something about the kids doing something.
Oh,
her
really?
daughter.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll try to get some camera crews down there.
Yeah.
If we
And
can
people
get
should
some.
take pictures anyway.
Yeah.
This is historical
point.
stuff. But the other thing, to get back to COVID-19, is that I was watching yesterday, and as you were all weekend, and I'm thinking, oh my God, all of these people are risking getting sick too.
Right.
Because even if you're wearing a mask, as we know, the mask is an addition to social distancing. So this is, hopefully that will not occur.
Well, and you have to feel that the fact that people have been cooped up for so long has to add to some of the people's involvement and just their attitudes while this is happening. I mean, they're cooped up. Not that it shouldn't, not that it shouldn't happen. And of course it's all turned political and that whole side of the coin. But I think it's real easy to break down racism. It's real easy to break down that this is what this is, and it's just not acceptable anymore.
It's not
And
as-
you know, maybe it's the time that it'll finally change. I hope so.
And it isn't an either or thing. I think we tend to see everything without any nuance.
Right.
So if we say that Black lives matter, oh, that means white lives don't matter, or this cop is a bad cop, that means that all cops are bad cops. That's not
It's not it at
that's
all.
not it at all.
Yeah.
They're crappy doctors and they're great doctors.
yeah.
They're still doctors.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's where the nuance breaks down, and social media doesn't help any of that stuff either.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting weekend on social media.
Yeah.
I think some people need to not do a lot of talking on it because they're
Time
going
out.
to get fired.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I'm like, don't say that.
You're right.
Okay. So you heard this morning. I didn't really hear this, but I heard it a little bit, but you reacted the way that I thought you would, that lawmakers are asking the governor to allow outdoor graduation ceremonies.
Yeah. This should be fun because so Ken Laval and Fred Thiel, all with and Anthony Palumbo on Friday sent a letter urging Governor Andrew Cuomo to allow school districts that can safely hold outdoor graduation ceremonies to move forward with plans for July. And I don't know why I said July like that.
I don't know.
I have no idea. But I just thought it was interesting because, you know, we're going to be filming the ceremony that Adam Fine has.
I think it's June 26th.
Yeah, June 26th, and he's put a lot of time and effort into this about, you know, holding these very remote type of ceremonies so that the kids can have something.
Right.
And now it's like, and now I just wonder what he's thinking.
Well, let's see
maybe
what
it's gonna
Governor Cuomo says. Maybe he'll say no.
Maybe he will say no, or maybe he'll say yes, and that'll be
Right.
a good thing, and it'll all work out. But it's going to have some people scrambling, I
Right.
think, if he says, yeah, maybe you can have it.
Yeah.
So more to follow on
And
that one.
on that note, the Adopt a Senior program
Yes.
is going. I think they've adopted all the seniors, and LTV has an adopted senior.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked to the parents but we just want to know that we adopted a senior, and we're all
Yes.
excited about it.
Yeah.
Oh, and then so we have a little bit of good news, right?
Good.
I mean, depending, I guess. Some
Mm-hmm.
people don't think it's good news, Michael Clark, but that's okay. Some people do.
No, I think it's an accomplishment.
It's an
for sure.
accomplishment, but it's a lot of money going to something that,
That's
Okay.
That's just a personal
yeah.
thing.
The this says the new era of human space travel. But what happened was that SpaceX launched on Saturday
Uh-huh.
and docked it at the space station today.
It was very cool. I watched the whole thing. I mean, I watched everything that was
Oh,
on
really?
about it. Yeah.
I didn't watch it. I was outside.
Yeah. See?
See?
You're pointing fingers at me.
So anyway, the business is SpaceX, the company founded by billionaire Elon Musk,
Right?
to pursue his dream of sending colonists to Mars. And if the way things continue going the way they are, I think I'm first in
going?
line. You want
You
an
going?
old person who's kind of out of shape and not ready at all
Yeah.
to go, but sort of wants to? Let's do it.
Mars is, how much different can it be, really? But
Once
I
you
thought
get humans there.
it was cool in terms of, as Jason had pointed out to me, that it's everything's going to be reusable now, and it was very cool how it all went off like clockwork, and the piece came down, and there's a
Right.
barge picked up the piece, and it was all right exactly as planned. I mean, it really probably couldn't have gone much smoother, and they're up there, meeting with the other people that were in the space station, and I mean, how remote is the whole space issue now? In that most people probably didn't even know there was people up in the space station.
Right.
You
We've
know,
lost
for-
touch
for-
with all of this stuff.
Yeah, but they've got it up and going again, and as long as they keep it in the right direction, it's okay.
Pretty cool. All right, so just a little local, ultra local COVID-19 stuff. They have extended the property tax deadline to June 21st. You have to
Right.
call 311. I know you talked with Peter about that on Friday.
Yep.
This I thought was interesting. If you go to scnyforward.info and you put in just a couple of search criterias, that is a virtual way that Suffolk County has put to find jobs locally.
Wow.
And I went and I checked it out, and it looks legit. The jobs are written out there. You can put in whatever you want. There were about 400 jobs listed for 11937,
Right.
our zip code. It looked to me, I think that's what it said. So that is pretty cool.
A lot of jobs on Mars, I hear. That's
yeah.
that's my understanding.
At least one.
I
don't know.
just heard that. I'm not sure that that's true, but
one programming note: we've done a regular schedule for the Beach series that
okay.
Jeannie and Mike Lavin have been working on with Hugh King, etc. And that is Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and it is a really beautiful series about the local beaches, the history of them, and eventually I think what we're going to do is we're going to actually do the history of the individual local beaches. So, for instance, Indian Wells.
Right.
Why is it called Indian Wells? Blah, 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 blah. Pretty interesting.
Really, really beautiful photography
And
on that too by Mike Lavin.
Lavin did a great job.
Really, really good. And also just a reminder, June the 6th and 7th at 8 o'clock, the Feed the Need, the Best Jams, which is a great local music, is going to be here on Channel 20. Randy Brecker, Loudon Wainwright III, Judy Carmichael, and a host of local stars like Gene Casey and Nancy Atlas and Indy Eaton are going to be performing. So I invite you to tune into that. And don't forget to follow Facts at 5 on social media, YouTube. Check out our website at www.ltveh.org. And once again, thank you to our sponsor for Facts at 5, Sound Aircraft Services. And until tomorrow.
You have a note that says census.
Oh, yeah. Census, right.
Do your census.
Do your
Camera
census.
2,
yeah.
do your census.
Yeah, they've only gotten about 1/3, truly. They've only gotten about 1/3 of what they were hoping to get.
And the information, I put it back in the slates. I had it for the whole time, but you can find the information to fill out your census, and it is completely anonymous. They cannot release the information for 76 years. You won't be alive then. And they're not going to knock down your door to take you away either. So fill out the census.
It was a very interesting. Just on a real quick side note, that during when they're interviewing some of the black leaders, about this travesty that happened, that they mentioned the census and something that is very, very important to fill out.
Oh wow! Okay.
You always hear voting and vote for people, and but the census to get truly represented, that's really important.
Yep.
So please fill those out, folks. That's great. Once again, have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Today, we're very excited to have an update from the Chief of Police for the town of East Hampton. A lot going on in our town. It's been a very challenging time. Here to update us is Chief of Police of East Hampton, Michael Sarlo. Michael, thank you for joining us on Facts at 5.
No problem. It's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to sharing some information and helping continue to communicate with the citizens in the community.
Great. Well, we spoke early on when this pandemic first hit. I want to just start there. I know there's been a lot of challenges and changes. Tell us how things are going with your police force. Even early on, I know there were questions of who tested positive. How is the force doing in terms of everything now?
Sure. So yeah, from the initial outset, obviously a lot of challenges, new protocols, new procedures, new safety guidelines, new screening, new sanitizing, very exhaustive planning and preparing for the proper PPE, the procedures in dealing with the public. Initially, we really had to get out in front of making sure that we protected the officers and the dispatchers and our civilian support staff so that we could continue to provide safety services to the community. We saw, Nassau County and NYPD saw immediate high spikes in positive cases among their officers. And with an agency our size, as small as we really are, if that happened here, we could have had some major struggles with still being able to provide safety to the community and response to all of the other services we provide other than just the COVID-19 related. So we were very fortunate. Only 2 of our 65 sworn police officers tested positive in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the pandemic back in March. Since then, through a Northwell Health project with the county. Almost every single one of our sworn and civilian staff members has been tested in the last 3 or 4 weeks. We've had no other positive cases. So we feel very
That's
fortunate
great.
in that we've managed to, we have to protect our own people so that we can effectively protect the community. And that was the first step in that. And we're very happy with the way that went. So.
Great. That's
Yeah.
great. Is the
Yeah.
force routinely tested? How does that work?
Yes, moving forward, we'll see how the protocols change. But what
Okay.
happened was Northwell Health, in conjunction with the county, going back about 3 weeks ago, opened up walk-in testing for all law enforcement and emergency personnel. We were able to go to either
Right.
Riverhead or the Suffolk Police headquarters, fill out the paperwork ahead of time online, get
Yeah.
tested, and get the results back. And we're very thankful that we were able to do that. It just gave a lot of our officers a peace of mind, and it allowed us to continue doing what we were doing.
Let's talk about this past weekend, and obviously we are in the season. Today is June 1st. Memorial
Yep.
Day weekend, kind of a soft opening. There were a lot of questions about what beaches were going to be open, if you had a permit already, if you could renew it. Tell us the state of,
Sure.
I went to the beach this past weekend. I saw the keep your distance, 6 feet social distancing sign. I was in the Indian
Yep.
Wells, and I saw that on the
Yep.
lifeguard chair. But tell me what's going on. How was this weekend, and how do you see things going?
Okay, so we've put a townwide committee together with Parks and Recreation, the lifeguards, a town board member, myself, and we're really focusing in on how to safely allow beachgoers to still use our beaches and encourage social distancing and masks where appropriate. The governor's office and the county passed down some guidelines on how to safely and effectively open the beaches that we must present to them for approval in order to keep our beaches open. And I really want to thank John Ryan, our head lifeguard, and John Rooney from Parks and Recreation, along with Councilman David Lease. They put an exhaustive amount of time into this to make sure that we had the proper safety protocols in place. And to be honest, a lot of what they put forth, the county is using as their guidelines in their committee. So very proactive and very out in front of it on the town side. And again, Parks and Recreation with sanitizing the bathrooms on a regular basis, limiting the access to the bathrooms, but still keeping them open. And all of the work that they have done along with the highway department in striping and lines and signage, it's been exhaustive. But what we feel right now is that we've created an environment where people are encouraged to wear a mask, passing each other in the parking lots, entering and exiting the beach, and using either a vendor or the bathrooms. It keeps people at ease. It helps people feel more comfortable using those facilities. But it's not so restrictive that you can't go down and sit on the beach and relax and take your mask off when you're socially distant from other people. So initially, obviously the plan looks good and we have a lot of personnel involved. Memorial Day weekend, as you said, was a soft opening, wasn't that busy. This weekend was busier, more crowds at the beaches. We got a lot of very good compliance and a very good feedback from the community so far. We have a Parks and Recreation employee at the head of the beach. We have lifeguards when you enter and exit the sand, just educating the community, asking them to comply, working with them to keep masks on and explain why it's important for the guidelines that have been put in place from the state, as well as having attendance at the bathrooms. And we have TCOs in every parking lot as well. We have Marine Division working back and forth between the beaches on the sand. And we have police officers that are regularly active, rotating between those areas. So there's a lot of town personnel and resources put in play to ensure the guidelines are being followed safely and that we can continue to keep the beaches open. Obviously, as we get busier and the weather gets warmer, there will be more challenges with parking, with crowds in the parking lots, and with also trying to maintain social distance on the sand within the lifeguard protected areas. People are going to have to spread out. They're going to have to use more of the beach in order to maintain spacing. And you're starting to see more family units come down the beach together. So you're getting 6, 8, and even up to 10 people, which is allowed under the guidelines, kind of congregating. So we're facing some challenges with communicating with those groups to make sure they are together, they are family units, and really just using a soft approach to asking for compliance and asking everyone to do their part to keep the beaches open. So far, so good. There's going to be some challenging areas. We have Indian Wells, Atlantic Avenue, Ditch Plains, and South Edison Beach in Montauk, which are officially open for lifeguard protected beaches right now. over the next 2 to 3 weeks, as more lifeguards become available and the plan falls into place a little bit better, you'll start to see some of the other beaches open. You'll see the parking lot at Kirk Park. They'll have a beach stand out in front of there. You'll see stands added at Atlantic Avenue, Indian Wells, and Ditch. So the coverage will expand, the crowds will expand. We just hope that the model that's working now will continue to function that well with more people there. That's our goal.
So when somebody, from what I understand it, if I were to walk on one of these beaches, I'd have to have a mask as I enter on the right and as I exit.
Yep.
But what about once I'm on the beach, socially distant? Do you take the mask off?
Yeah, you take the mask off when you're socially distant on the sand and you're just relaxing, enjoying the beach. And we just ask people to be, cognizant of who's around them and how they're passing people. And if you have to get up to go somewhere, you should probably have it with you so that if you can't socially distance, you can put it on. But other than that, enjoy the beach as you normally would.
I would think especially, and the bathrooms. I would think the bathrooms too is a place where you would wear a mask, right? Now, what if somebody is not in compliance? I mean, how stringent is everybody going to be? How can you manage that? If somebody says, look, I'm not wearing a mask, I want to go to the beach and work on my even suntan on my face. Seriously, what do you do with someone like that complying?
Well, right now we really haven't been getting much pushback. The only real issues we're having is entering and exit the parking lots for, surfers at the non-protected beaches where they're putting their wetsuit on and grabbing their board and going straight into the water. We're doing the best we can to spread the message and get that word out, but we also have to be reasonable in understanding that the risk of exposure and the risk of contact in those situations is extremely, extremely low. And if you as an individual are concerned about that person, you can steer clear of them and you can have your mask on. A lot of these guidelines are regulations that are not actually, we can't actually issue a ticket for a lot of these, but there is sections of the town code where if a lifeguard is overseeing the safety of a beach area, in other words, they ask you to turn your music down or they ask you to move your dog and you refuse to comply, there's a section of the town code that we could write a town code summons for failing to comply with the code orders. So that's a worst case scenario. We're really trying to seek voluntary compliance and, we're hoping that it doesn't go to that point. Yeah.
I want to touch upon something obviously that's struck the nation and the East End is not immune to, which is these protests over George Floyd and as a police officer. And I've read things that Steve Bellone has said about Suffolk County, how the officers in Suffolk County, that was not a right move with him leaning on his, on his neck like that. There were peaceful protests in Riverhead this past Sunday. Tell us take on this and in terms of East Hampton, because I understand that there might be some protests coming up in East Hampton. What can you tell us?
I think, sure. I think anyone who wears a uniform and puts on a badge and goes out to protect the community who saw that video was sickened by it. That's obviously not the protocols that we follow, and that's not how we would treat somebody, even in a use of force situation. Many of us put in a great deal of time and effort and a tremendous amount of our own being into treating the public fairly and equitably and creating a positive relationship with the community. And we feel like we have that here on the East End for the most part. Obviously, when you're in law enforcement and you're arresting people or ticketing, there's always some dissension and some, people are not happy with some of the actions we take. But in all honesty, the feedback that we get from our community with the relationship our officers have on the street with all people, regardless of their race or gender or anything, is very positive. We have a very professional police force. We treat the public with the utmost respect. And when these situations happen, they reflect poorly on all of us, and it makes our jobs harder. So not one of us is happy with the events that are going on around the country. We feel terrible about how people of color feel in this circumstance, and we do everything we can to make sure that they don't feel that in their interactions with us on a professional basis. And we support the peaceful protest. However, we do everything we can to ensure that they don't become violent and that, innocent bystanders, business owners, or police officers who are just out trying to do their job to protect the community don't end up being injured and hurt as a result of some of the anger that's coming out of this. So it's very difficult for all of us to watch and see, and we try to really focus down in on the local aspect of this to support our community.
That's great. Locally, I know we have had protests in the past, peaceful demonstrations
Sure.
in East Hampton. What is planned
Yep.
for this coming weekend that you know of?
I do believe on social media I saw that there's a walk protest that's supposed to happen in East Hampton Village, I believe on the 6th. And we've had a tremendous interaction and respect and response to any of the local groups that have protested here. We work with them. We create safe avenues for them. We make sure they feel protected, and everyone has a voice. We facilitate them having that voice peacefully, and it seems to work out well. The organizers, typically when we either meet with them or discuss planning, it's usually very clear that we're speaking out on a national issue and we're all focused on the same goal. And it's not a protest against our police department. It's a protest against the issues that impact police relations. And we're very respectful of that. And we're looking forward to that going off very well, just as the one in Riverhead did this weekend, very peacefully and very cooperatively,
So
and good message, good voice.
This you think will be
Go
on the
ahead.
6th? What you said, was it Hook Mill to Herrick Park?
I believe so, either that or vice versa.
Okay.
But I understand once the organizers get a permit and they'll start putting out more information, and you'll see it go out locally.
Okay.
But, well, the East Hampton Village is aware of it. They'll work with their organizers, and we'll help them if needed. But we don't anticipate any problems or issues with that event. So.
Yeah. But in terms of the community, in terms of emergencies or just being safe or enjoying the summer, is there any one message that you can put out to people in the town of East Hampton?
I actually there's two. One is that the issues that are going on with the openings of the businesses through the phases is very challenging for all of our local business community, and we understand that. And we just hope everyone understands that we're seeking compliance in our role as a law enforcement agency and trying to help spread the word so that people understand what the businesses can and can't do. And the goal of that is just to continue the safety of the citizens and the health of our residents. It's not to punish those businesses. And we really are trying to work together with them so they understand how to safely reopen their businesses and keep the community moving. It's a very difficult position for us to be in. We know that these business owners have a small window, and that window closes on them with each week that passes, and we sympathize with that, but we have to be even and fair in how we go about sharing those rules and regulations. And then on top of that, it's just as we move forward as a community into the summer, we all just need to be respectful of each other. We need to try to follow the guidelines for social distancing and masks, and respect business owners who ask you to put one on in their business. The governor's order requires that for some of these essential businesses. And we have to use common sense and just try to work together. And it's going to be a very different summer. And we just ask everyone to kind of take a step back and slow down and work together. That's my message.
Wow. Well, we really appreciate you and your department, and the town of East Hampton has had relatively low numbers, like second only to Shelter Island, according to Peter Van Spark, which we are grateful for. We want to keep it that way. Thank you for keeping us safe and for keeping us, in good standing. And we thank you for joining us again, Chief Michael Sarlo, Town of East Hampton. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Take care.